welcome to another episode of our Inner Sparks featured stories. I am Lily Yan, your host of this podcast and founder of our Inner Sparks Network, a network of ordinary women sharing our extraordinary stories to inspire and empower each other and others. Women take ourselves for granted and do not often give ourselves credits or see our own values. We must celebrate our successes, help support, and inspire each other. In this episode, we will be chatting with a great friend of mine, Cecilia. She's a devoted wife, a mother of 3, and a supportive friend. Over the last few years, Cecilia has impressed me with her ability to make things happen. She has been trailblazing in many fronts. She organizes large-scale gatherings, such as annual neighborhood celebrations. She completed her certification of aromatherapist. Recently, she started Facebook groups for topics she has expertise in and are helping her friends along the way by sharing her knowledge and experience. Most recently, she has embarked on a new adventure using her background in human biology, environment, and health to create skincare solutions for herself and friends. Shortly after she shared her skincare ideas and solutions, her friends encouraged her to go one step further. Since then, Cecilia started her own business and established a micro lab called Hyangii. Cecilia now produces her own skincare line using the knowledge and skills she has gained from her academic, professional, and personal experiences. It's so exciting for me to share Cecilia's story with you. Now, let's get to our featured story today. Hi, Cecilia. Welcome.
Hi, Lily. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with everyone. Before we get started, would you mind giving us a bit of an introduction of yourself and what gives you so much energy to do all the stuff that you do in your life?
My name is Cecilia. I'm a mother of 3 boys and a wife and a mother of a dog.
Which we'll hear intermittently.
Yeah, but I don't know how to help that, so sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay. I gave up my career 10 years ago as a researcher because my 3rd son had a very serious chronic illness, and I had mixed feelings about that, still do, but all of my extra hobbies and passion projects keep me engaged while I take care of my family. So I think that just, I don't know, maybe sums it up.
Yeah, sounds good. Like you said, you run a household. You are very involved in your children's activities, and you also get involved in a lot of passion projects. You want to tell us some of those projects and what you do?
I have one in the community that's called Urban Villager. That's a blog, a community blog. So we have people in the community contributing articles and stories and things like that on it. That's brand new. I have a special interest in kids athletics because my kids are competitive gymnasts and they get injured a lot. So I'm not worried so much about like how to win. I'm worried about how to prevent and treat injuries. And I had been doing that through massage because I'm an aromatherapist.
Right.
And I learned how to do that for my kids.
So a lot of these things are things that you have interest because something is happening in your life that you feel, hey, you know what? If there were more resources like this out there, that will be great. So then you are then doing it because you're using it anyway in your life, and then you're actually then putting it on a platform like a blog or something for others to use as well. Is that what you're saying?
Well, mostly it's kind of like a digital scrapbook for myself. Like I don't really...
Right.
It doesn't matter to me if other people read it, but I do get a lot of questions. So it's a scrapbook for myself. And then I don't have to keep searching it up and looking for it online. I could just reference the group.
Okay. Yeah. When you think of something, you just go do it and you take actions. Like you moved into this new neighborhood and you said, hey, the neighbors here should actually spend some more time together and get to know each other. And tell us a little bit about that.
The street party?
Yeah.
How did you know about the street party?
I know things, Cecilia.
So I moved into this neighborhood having been the new kid on the block all the time because I moved around a lot as a kid. So I wasn't afraid to say, hey, do you want to be on a distribution list, an email distribution list? And I just walk up to unsuspecting neighbors. I get their names and emails. And then I put it in a list. And that way, people could reply all and communicate to the whole street.
Right.
And then we had a street party. Like, what's the point of having a distribution list without having a party? So we've been doing it. We had our 10th one in the spring.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Not a lot of neighborhoods do that. And not a lot of people do that. For you, your motivation is you're new on the block and you want to get to know more people. A way of getting yourself out there as well, right?
That's kind of a nice way to say it. But, with neighbors, you kind of don't have a choice. They're kind of like family. And I love my neighbors, but I thought it was prudent to establish good relationships,
right?
Positive relationships, so that when a conflict comes up, you could deal with it nicely.
Okay, well, that's good. It sounds wonderful, all these things that you're involving yourself in. And then you alluded to that, you have a skincare hobby, which then turned into more than just a hobby. So it's a business now. Tell me, where do you get all this energy? You have so much going on, and then you go and do a business. And we'll talk about that later, how you actually establish the business.
You know what? I'm going to attribute all of my projects to being affected by seasonal affective disorder. I suffer from seasonal affective disorder, and I didn't realize that's what it was until just maybe 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I realized that I have to keep myself physically active and mentally active so as to control my anxieties. Mm-hmm. So if people think seasonal affective disorder, which is the acronym is SAD, they think that the D stands for depression, but actually D stands for disorder, and for me it's anxiety.
Right.
So in order to just kind of keep that in check, I do activities that interest me.
That engages you.
Yeah.
And yes.
So that I don't go into a mental spiral, worrying about all sorts of things.
Right.
There's a lot of things to worry about.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about, all your different hobby and passion projects. Let's talk about the one that is actually recent and that is turning into more than just a hobby and passion project, the skincare. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with skincare and the solutions that you've been providing, and then how did that then become a business?
So I started making my own skincare maybe 5 years ago. And then it's kind of like making soup. I had so much that I had to get rid of it because there's a shelf life. Right. Because these are made with raw plant-based ingredients. So they don't have a long shelf life. I had to just kind of distribute it to people near me so as not to waste the ingredients. And a demand was created.
Your friends were like, hey, this is great.
And then they told their friends, and then I had a lot of inquiries. And in order to sell cosmetics in Canada, you have to go through mandatory filing with Health Canada, and then there's insurance. It's not simple.
Right.
It's not
everyone's gonna, cook up a pot of cosmetics and sell. It's not a typical thing that people would do,
and there's a lot of regulations around that.
It did not stop you from doing that.
Well, no, it did. So no, actually I didn't want to do that. So I started the Facebook group.
That's how that started.
Yeah, to say here's how you can do it yourself. And I posted DIY recipes that with ingredients that you can find in your local grocery store or drugstore.
Right.
And so I said, I don't want to sell it. Here, make it yourself. You totally can make it yourself.
Right.
And so people were really interested. They added their friends, and I added more friends, but nobody was doing it. They're just interested, but they're not willing to do it. Kind of like how I am with sewing. So if you give me a textile, I will just freak out. I will not sew a button. I will not sew a zipper.
Everybody is good at different things.
Right.
And that's okay.
And so maybe 6 months after I started it, the demand wasn't decreased as I thought it would, due to my DIY recipe posting. So I launched my first introductory line of skincare. And then I made a separate Facebook group, so I'm not selling on this community that I had
community
built.
Educational knowledge sharing group. So now you have a separate group just for the product line itself.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also I ran out of skincare DIY recipes and spa Sunday ideas. It went from being a skincare group to a self-care group.
Nice.
It was just a natural transition. And so now we talk about a wide range of self-care topics.
Right.
The most recent one is kind of boring, is financial literacy. How to set boundaries is a big one.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us women have a hard time with that. So
yeah.
So I'm really,
I wouldn't say boring. I think everyone requires different things in their life. A lot of times, one thing that may not be of interest to somebody, but it's like really important to another person. And there's different messages for different people. So that's great that you're offering this.
so there's a lot of expertise from different people in that group.
Right. It's not just you.
No.
Yes.
Right. So it's just kind of, if I read something interesting, I'll pin it on there for myself to go back and read it after, and someone else might be interested, and a discussion will ensue.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
I feel really lucky to have that community. My favorite place on the internet.
Yeah. And I mean, you took the time to build that a little bit too, right? It's not something that just happens naturally necessarily. It's something that you have taken the time to care for others, to bring them together, and to maybe even at some point organize activity a little bit, so that then it became something, more than just a individual having a group. It's more a network of people and community coming together and doing something together.
Yeah, like what you're doing with Inner Sparks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you give me too much credit, because I didn't have that foresight. I just kind of posted interesting articles, and a lot of people found it interesting, and it just kind of organically grew.
Let's talk about your journey on the skincare line.
Okay.
The skincare line is called
Hyangii.
You also have established what's called a micro lab.
A micro lab is a dedicated space in my basement where I create my skincare formulations. I do not want it to touch food and get contaminated from the daily life that I have in my kitchen, with people moving in and out. So I do have a dedicated space for that, because things have to be very clean when you produce something like skincare products. It's a little space in my basement, has a sink, it has like a hot plate. I have like a whole separate little lab with supplies.
It sounds complicated, like especially for somebody who doesn't have experience in this field. Did you have the expertise before from your academics or previous jobs? Like, how did you know to do all this and put that together?
Okay, so first of all, I'm a cook. Right, I cook a lot.
You
for
continue
my
to
family.
talk about making soup.
Yeah, I make
Like
so
making
much
soup.
food. I have
Yes,
3
you do.
teenage boys, right? So I cook a lot.
Yeah.
And when I cook, I'm pretty clean about it.
Yeah.
I learned that from my mom, and also just from working in a lab. So number one, I cook a lot, so I get a lot of practice. And secondly, I do have background in laboratory
Right.
and medical research.
Right.
And I worked in a cancer immunology lab. It just becomes like in nature now.
So you feel like skincare is very similar to the lab work that you've done in medical world as well as the cooking?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And you play around with solubilities a lot. That's high school chemistry.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I did organic chemistry labs and biology
Yes.
labs in university.
Yes.
So
Yeah. All the things that
skill
you
that I
know and you put it together, and now it's something that's it's passion and now established product.
yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's great. About the business itself, prior to doing this, have you had any business skills, or was it that when you were going through hey, I'm transitioning from a Facebook group to a business, it seemed very intimidating? Have you ever had doubt before you entered doing the business that your skills wasn't sufficient to make that happen for you?
There wasn't doubt. It was a fact that I am not a business person. I have no desire to be an entrepreneur. That is, my father and my brother have that passion for that. I do not whatsoever. I would be happier to give things out for free, but people are not willing to accept things for free. It's burdensome for them to keep accepting for free. And then they were not able to gift it to a relative or their mother or right. So the demand was there, and I knew that I was putting people in an awkward position by just giving them stuff. For sure, I am not a business person, and I was never intending to go into business.
Right. But then because you are now into doing this as a business, you have to pick up a lot of those skills or do something, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
The biggest thing is I think I learned how to do a website. That's
right?
huge.
Right?
I am not technical either, but it's very empowering to be able to do that. I have to file taxes.
Right.
I'm happy if I break even, which I currently am doing, because that group that I provide to is my friends and their friends.
Right.
So I am happy if I break even. I don't need to turn a profit. And because I feel like I'm learning a lot, I feel like I'm going to MBA school. And maybe, I don't know what's an MBA school. I don't know.
I think you're doing more than that.
I feel like I'm getting an education for free.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
know? And so
That's a great way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
You know, doing that passion project, you're doing something you enjoy, and you're learning all sorts of new skills.
Yeah.
And you're helping people, and you're helping yourself, and right. So it is, in essence, an education itself.
But it
Great way
has
of
to be
thinking
a business because I have for liability, right? So I have to have insurance, and I have to, it has to be registered with Health Canada, all the cosmetics in Canada.
Yeah.
It's mandatory. So I had to turn it into a business. On paper, it's a business, but but really, it's kind of me sharing the bounty of the harvest.
You never know where it's gonna go. Like I honestly do believe I've been in the group for a little bit now, and I saw a lot of communication go back and forth about the product itself. People are excited about it, excited about getting it, and excited about the results that they're getting. I think you're onto a great thing, and you're providing a great service for everybody, and providing an awesome product that people love. So I think it's gonna go places.
You're doing a good thing when you do something that you love. People are paying you money for it, and then they're giving you hugs like it's thanks for my Christmas present.
Right?
I'm like, but you bought this. I like, it blows me away every time that people are so thankful, because really, I think I'm more thankful that people took. The skincare market is so saturated.
It
they have
truly is,
all these choices, and to spend their hard-earned money on something that I made is just an honor that I couldn't even imagine before.
Yeah.
Like,
It's actually
amazing.
interesting you said that. I was thinking that as I was preparing for this interview, and I said to myself, if I were you when I was looking at business opportunities, I probably wouldn't have picked skincare products because it's so saturated, like you said.
Yeah.
So in your mind, when you were turning that into a business, did that even ever come to you as a doubt or as a thought, as a deterrent? Because that's, in essence, a lot of times how people get stopped in their path to entrepreneurship or starting a business, right?
Yeah, but I think the demand was there from my friends and their friends. And when I was thinking about actually getting the insurance and doing all the website, because that's kind of a huge investment of time, which is the number one biggest concern that I had, was for my time. I scoured. I've always been interested in ingredient lists, but I scoured through them. And right now, because I'm not turning a profit and it's still reasonably priced, the ingredient deck on Hyangii products, in my opinion, is far superior than what you can get on the market. Because commercial products, you need to store them. Like, you make it, you warehouse them, then you go to the retailer, it sits on a shelf. And so they have no choice but to use shelf-stable ingredients.
Right.
For Hyangii, I use ingredients that are not shelf-stable. So I take the orders, then I order the supplies, then I make it, and it goes directly to
So it's a batch.
the consumer.
Yeah,
it's fresh.
it's batch made fresh in your micro lab, and then directly into
Yeah.
the customer's hands.
So there's no time being warehoused
Right.
or in sitting on a retail shelf. And so that's how I'm able to offer high quality products at like a similar price
range.
to what you can buy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what's unique about your skin line product, Hyangii. I think you articulate it really well, is that you don't have those harmful chemicals for shelving purposes, because they have to warehouse it or store it and shelf it. And this is why you shared it in the first place. Is you were making it for yourself, and you had a lot more, and then therefore has a certain shelf life. You're sharing it, and I think now with this, it's a calculated batch. Whatever order you get, you're producing it to make that for that demand. It's actually a really smart way of doing this. I think
it was like a necessity. Like I couldn't do it any other way, right?
Yeah.
But also, like, just for the shelf-stable ingredients, it's if it doesn't contain water, it doesn't need a preservative. So there's nothing harmful. What it is it's very processed. It's a very processed, filtered oil.
You mean the ones that you get in the store for the
That are
cosmetics?
shelf-stable, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
So that's what it is. It's not even just that it's harmful. It's just not as nourishing as some of the more fragile, raw,
Right.
cold-pressed oils are. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Wow. Some of the trends out there for skincare is going all natural. Talking about natural organic products. And I know based on some of your articles that you mentioned, all natural does not equal to all good. Can you maybe explain that a little bit too?
Sure.
And your idea around that?
In Canada, if you sell cosmetics, you have to file with Health Canada. That does not mean that it's approved by Health Canada. And I had a phone conversation with someone at Health Canada about this. It's not regulated. So you have to file, you have to notify Health Canada that this is on the market, but they don't go and approve anything. And I said to my contact at Health Canada, like, the least you can do is just make sure it's properly preserved, but they won't do that. So you will see things on the shelf that are all natural.
Right.
People will make products that contain water and not preserve them. And with my background in, microbiology, you can't do that. It's like leaving salad dressing on the counter for a long time.
Or milk. Yeah.
Yeah, or milk, right? Olive oil you can leave out there,
Right.
coconut oil. There's some things like salad dressing you can't leave out. So yeah, no, there's a lot of natural products like fungi and molds, and it's not good for you, right? So I think the dose is the poison. Everything is a chemical. Water is a chemical. Air is a chemical, right? Everything is a chemical, and it's all dose dependent. So there's a lot on the internet, if you look, demonizing quote unquote chemicals, and then the sciencey people kind of mock the tree huggers. And I don't think either extreme is really helpful. And you just have to be an educated consumer,
Right.
both in what you buy, to wear, to eat, to put on your skin. So
Yeah. So obviously running a business takes a lot. It sounds like you've learned a lot of new skills. You used a lot of expertise that you had. The way you're describing it is just so easy. But I'm sure there were a lot of challenges. And do you ever get overwhelmed?
yes, I do, but my body's the limiting reagent, right? So my brain can keep going, so my body tells me when to stop. So I have a few chronic conditions that flare up when I'm stressed or tired.
Right.
And I used to get angry at myself when I was bedridden because of this. And now I see it not as a weakness, but as like a superpower, because I think it's an indicator, and that if I don't listen to my body, I'm going to have some more serious repercussions on my health because of it. So when those symptoms come up for me, then I know, okay, time for rest. You need to slow down. And so I really listen to my body a lot these days. I didn't do that before. I used to just kind of override everything.
Right.
And I don't think that's healthy for
Right.
us, physically or mentally or emotionally.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of women, especially, take on a lot. We do a lot for everybody else. We do for our children, do for our husband, do for our family. We feel obligated to do everything for everybody, and we forget about ourselves, right? The fact that you are now paying attention to the signals that your body's giving you, that's great in itself. I think a lot of women probably don't even recognize it. I know for a long time I was very sick too, and I couldn't breathe properly, and I thought it was me getting old. Over time, and I start changing my lifestyle and start noticing or start paying attention to myself. That's when you discover that, actually I can make adjustments. And once I make those adjustments, my body feels better and I feel better, and in turn I'm happier, and then actually become more of help to others.
Right.
Right? And then you're able to do a lot more actually if you take care of yourself.
Right. Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome to hear. Now that you're doing so much more, you're taking on a lot of things that maybe you weren't doing before, and you have probably spent more time on these passion projects. Do you have any challenges at home? Do you have anything that you feel that you have to overcome at a personal level?
Personal level?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest takeaway lessons that I've learned in the last couple of years is that not every problem has a solution. And especially if it involves other human beings, you don't always agree. And to agree to disagree and to make space and acknowledge the differences is an act of love in and of itself. And, just to let that sit there is more loving than trying to force someone else into a box. I've let a bunch of problems just exist, which is new for me.
just feeling okay with having that exist.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of us don't feel okay, and just like we're always trying to fix something or fix
Right.
somebody.
Right, because you asked me that question before about like, when do you feel the most proud of yourself?
Right.
And it's when I'm fixing a problem.
Right.
When I fix a problem, I feel the most proud of myself.
Right. Right.
But there's some problems you can't fix.
That's right. Yeah. And then being okay with that
Yeah.
and letting that. But I think it's more of a conscious decision, right?
Yeah.
You have processed it, you have worked it, you have acknowledged that there are differences that you just can't work it, and leaving it there. Yeah. Well, that takes a lot of courage too.
It does.
Yeah. So what's next for Cecilia? You know, you've done a lot. What is your next goal?
You know what's worked out for me is not to have a goal.
Wow,
So
that's
if
very
I-
interesting. That's very counterintuitive.
You know, like when we go to university and we're working and stuff, there's a goal. You have to make some kind of deadline. You have to, get this grant or get this client. And right now, I don't have those kinds of goals.
Okay.
The biggest goal I have for myself, I guess, is to do something that scares me every day, participating on the internet. I have a very hard time with that. All of the YouTube videos are unlisted. I don't put anything out publicly. And, my brother, who's very entrepreneurial, says, you need to get over that already. So that's kind of my biggest challenge. I don't know really what I'm afraid of. So I think that's holding me back from doing probably what I want.
So that's your challenge to yourself.
Yeah, so thanks for challenging me today.
Well, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to challenge you. That's amazing. I think what you're doing is amazing, very admirable. A lot of the things that you've been sharing with your friends and family and friends of friends. So, in essence, they were not, originally your friends, but now you've included them in your family and helping out. And I'm hoping with this as well, you'll get more and more people that are actually interested in your story and interested in the skincare line that you provide as well. And I think it does adds a lot of value to the society and to our community.
Thank you.
So now let's get into our next segment, In Search of True Fulfillment. Let's talk about 3 different things. And in this segment, what we want to do is keep these answers pretty short.
Okay.
So either 1 sentence or 10 seconds.
Okay.
How do you define success?
Success for me right now is that I'm able to take care of my family and be able to be okay with myself as a human being and not as a human doing.
Well, that's really interesting. Yeah. Never heard of that, but I guess because we're so busy doing all the time.
And I value myself for accomplishing something. Appreciate myself the way I appreciate my family just for being around,
Right.
I don't extend that same thing to myself.
Kindness to yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a great one. What makes you happy in life?
My body's happy when I exercise and eat well. My heart is happy when I'm with friends, and I'm happy with my family and just seeing them grow. And just being able to witness that is amazing.
Happiness.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So if there's one thing for someone to take from this conversation with us and your story to ignite and harvest their inner sparks, what would it be?
The biggest thing is learn to say no. So learn to say no to the things that are not important to you at the moment, to make space for the things that are, because you can do everything and you can have everything, but not at the same time. So if you overwhelm yourself with yeses and pleasing other people, you'll never have time to do the things that matter to you the most. So I think that's the biggest
well said.
thing. It's hard to do.
It is really
right?
hard to do. I think, again, with women, we feel obligated. Sometimes we're trained that way, and girls do certain things, and this is how our mothers take care of our family, and hence we have to take care of our family that way. But the world's changed significantly, and like you said, if we don't learn to say no and to do what's right for ourselves, then we actually don't have a lot left to help anyone else, right? Thank you, Cecilia. I want you to know that you've inspired me with your journey on Hyangii. That has inspired me to take my step with my passion project.
Aww.
Okay. I'm hoping others who are listening to your story are deciding to take some actions in their life, no matter how little it is, to do something that they enjoy.
Thank you, Lily.
So, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Your thoughts on this episode is encouraged on all our social media sites, which are listed in the podcast description. We'll have some engaging questions on the social media sites about topics touched upon within this podcast, where you can interact with one another. Feel free to share your own related experiences, what you have learned from this podcast, and what you will take away as actions. While we understand not everyone will agree on each topic, please always exercise mutual respect as we interact with one another. This network is a safe place for everyone to learn and grow. If you have any feedback on this podcast, the social media sites, and this network as a whole, please feel free to email me at ourinnersparks@gmail.com. ourinnersparks@gmail.com. Should you or someone in your life have an inspiring story you would like to see shared in our network, please feel free to email me with a nomination for future features. Again, the email is ourinnersparks@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Our Inner Sparks Featured Stories.